Hello, and welcome to the Quantum Fit Podcast. I'm Taylor, and I am your host. This podcast is all about applying the different principles of quantum physics and quantum biology to your health and fitness. This gives us a holistic view of how different environmental factors, such as sunlight or cold, play a major role in your overall health. So I won't just be talking about diet or exercise and developing good habits. If you want to really make lasting changes in how you feel, think, and act, then I'd recommend you try to listen closely and have an open mind to what I have to say. Every day I'll be hitting you with a quick 7 to 15 minute long podcast. I keep it short like this because it makes it both informative and to the point so that you don't feel quite so overwhelmed with information. Also, currently I do not do any kind of advertisements. So instead, I ask that you share this podcast with a friend or family member if you enjoyed the message and gained something from it. I want to be able to spread quality and easy to understand content that everyone can take and use in their own daily lives. I would highly appreciate it. On to today's episode, which water to choose. We just got done covering the main methods of creating more structured water. So, let's begin applying it in the real world with tools, and we'll also take a look at what the best waters you can actually buy are. So the first tool you could consider buying is a copper water jug of some kind. Tiny, non-toxic amounts of copper will leach into the water. As I mentioned in the previous episode, copper is particularly good at increasing the exclusion zone size. Now, there are no studies to reference, but I'm assuming that part of the reason people see benefits from drinking, or when drinking from copper cups, is because of this increased exclusion zone size. I mean, part of it is the fact that, they're just getting more copper in their diet. And most people are deficient in copper, more than likely, since the best source of getting copper is crustaceans. We're meant to eat lots of crustaceans and oysters, shellfish. So, I mean, that's going to be a big part of it too. But also, might as well mention that, drinking out of copper cups and stuff has been recommended for a real long time. Like if you look at the ancient healing and medicine system of Ayurveda, the Indian system, they recommend drinking from copper cups. It's said to balance all three body types, So, obviously it's been known about, the benefits of drinking from a copper cup. It's been known for thousands of years. So there's definitely something there. Then, the next kind of tool you can get would be some kind of magnet. I would definitely look at like the Magnetico sleeping mat. You could actually, if you have that on your bed, then you can just set water on your bed, or just cut a little piece off of the Magnetico and store water on top of it somewhere dark. It's a quick, easy way to help structure water. It's the equivalent of water in nature that sits in aquifers. When it's nested deep underground, the water there is constantly connected to and being, affected by Earth's magnetism. That's one of the reasons that aquifer water, ends up being so good for you, is because of the connection to Earth's magnetism. It's further down, nested in, between rock. Next tool, just buy a cheapy wine aerator. Basically, there's a bunch of different kinds, but, in general, it just adds air to the water, or liquid. It's normally meant for wine, but it works just fine for water. It also does, I think most of them cause vortexing, so they're not just adding air, but they're actually creating a vortex to help suck in the air into the liquid. So that means you're also going to add oxygen into the water, besides doing the vortexing, which I talked about in the previous episode. So quite a bit cheaper than any of the other tools here. It's like $30 or less on Amazon. Again, it's just a wine aerator. Putting water in the sun is the best way to get infrared light for building EZ, but you could reasonably use a quality red or infrared light as well. I'd go with the light bulbs from Sauna Space. And make sure your water's in a glass container so the infrared light will get through. They say glass blocks infrared light, but there's plenty of the spectrum that makes it through, so don't even worry about it. I mentioned the minerals towards the end of the last episode. I would go with the Concentrace mineral drops off of Amazon. It's mostly magnesium and has very little sodium in it. And again, in theory, this should increase the maximum size of the EZ, but the mineral drops are just going to be good for you in general too. And then lastly, there's cooling water, which you can figure that one on your own. So you can combine any of these methods however you want. Use all or just some. I talked about before, everybody has their own opinion on the best way to do it. So, and there's not enough studies to show that combining all of them would be better than, say, just putting water in the sun. Who the hell knows? Who am I to say that I know better than you do when it's like no one even really understands how water works in the first place. So that's why I'm just going to leave it at that. Choose what you will for your tools. But on the other hand, if you're looking to actually buy like a water system that takes advantage of some of those properties, or just water that's already done and ready for you, then then I have some solid suggestions. While I was doing all this research, I ran into an interesting device I found called the Super Imploder. It's got a pretty cheesy name, but hey, they've done their own studies and it sounds pretty legit from everything, everything they have on there, assuming everything is verified. So basically it's just a tube you run water through, and it has a specially designed vortex generator and magnet system. It's actually a lot simpler than it sounds. It's just gonna basically end up spinning the water at a specific rate, and it has magnets that'll sit in there just to magnetize the water. So again, with their own studies they showed a yield increase of at least 10%, while at the same time having plants need less water to grow, which is kind of interesting. That not only does it make it, the plants grow faster and bigger, but they actually don't need as much water to grow. I think as high as like 30% less water needed, which is, pretty insane, really. So there's definitely something there. So, if anything, buying a couple and hooking them up through showers and sinks sounds like a good idea, so you can have some structured water handy at all times. I did an episode covering deuterium last week and talked about how it tends to be, pretty bad stuff if there's too much of it. Well, you can buy water that's deuterium depleted. There's a ton of different brands out there now, but two of them stand out to me overall. Q Larivia is the first one, and that's because they have an insanely low 25 parts per million water. For reference, most water is between 135 to 155 parts per million, and that's, deuterium parts per million, protium, regular water. Small changes in parts per million of deuterium concentration result in exponential differences biologically. This means that 25 parts per million is, it's basically holy water. Okay, you're only meant to have one bottle of it a day or less, depending on how healthy you are. This stuff is recommended for people that have like late stage cancer. It's very possible that combined with, correcting diet and getting in the sun, that the water could help actually reverse it and get someone through it. It's that potent. Divinia is another brand that is low in deuterium, but it's a bit different. Should be noted, the concentration of deuterium in this water is at least below 125 parts per million, but I can't seem to find what it is exactly yet. I've been searching around on their site, so hey, maybe you guys could find it, I don't know. Anyways, their water is double distilled and ultra oxygenated through some patented processes they have. Divinia water has also been tested and actually proven to have really massive exclusion zones, as well as greater bioavailability of oxygen and hydrogen. They've also done independent studies proving the efficacy of their water in humans. So they've actually shown that their water, yes, has huge, massive health benefits for people. So I'd highly recommend checking out this water. Reverse osmosis water is another interesting water. It's really not good by itself because it's basically dead and doesn't have much structure to it, but it can be super chilled. This means you can go below the normal freezing temperature with it, far, far below. So, if you put it in the freezer and you don't shake it around that much, it will actually stay as a liquid, whereas other water would just completely freeze. So you can get some incredibly structured water this way. But if you don't do this, I would avoid reverse osmosis water. Just because, again, it won't have a lot of structure. If you end up doing the other structuring methods, well, you might as well just use spring water. Which you can't go wrong with it. Spring water is still super good. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, I would highly, highly recommend it also. Again, who am I to say which one of these waters is best? Well, the Q Larivia is probably the best one if you're in a really bad spot, but otherwise, all of them are good options. Spring water is going to be programmed by nature in every possible way, and it's going to be far better than whatever comes out of your tap. You can fill up, for free at a spring, actually. You just have to look up the website, findaspring.com. It's kind of neat. I actually checked it out. There's not a whole lot of springs on there for Minnesota, especially living near the Twin Cities, but maybe some more will pop up in the future. And I think that just about does it. Quite a bit of information in this episode, so I hope you guys liked it. Covered quite a bit here. So if you have any questions and comments on which water to buy or anything like that, you can find me on Instagram at RealQuantumFit, the Quantum Fit Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, Taylor Kelson, or you could send me a voice message across the Anchor app. See ya!